Don't mind me, fellas. I'm just looking through the stuff of the podcast, looking at the latest posts from Andrew Tate, and I'm doing some research into the newest fashion of what's going on.
79T 2458 Learning Corp Little Red Riding Hood, take one.
Red morning. Welcome, guys. I hope you're enjoying your workouts. I hope you're enjoying your morning coffee with your women after you had a nice plow session last night or whatever. I'll promise to make it less vulgar, but whatever. It's one of these mornings. It's one of these great Christmas mornings. And I always think Christmas comes at the end of December, but no. The internet provides. We're having Christmas all the time. All the time. What happened now? Another one of the haters decided to nuke their lives. I have no idea how to process this, and it just seems like everybody who can't stand me, tax Rollo, hates the red pill, always ends up going to jail or getting cucked or whatever. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, there was this. So Rollo's doing his like goofy. I'll get to the content after this. I promise. We're gonna have 5 minutes of me not being better than that because I'm not better than this. I'm petty as hell. Screw it. There was this guy. I don't remember what his real name is. Steve or something like that. One of them white guy names. And he goes by the nomenclature Destiny. I guess he was famous for being as good as you could be at StarCraft without being South Korean. Which, I have a guest from the D&D session that I was going to bring on. We were going to talk about that. That'll be fun. I gotta reach out to him. That's totally on me. That's on me. We should have had this one by now. It probably would have been this one, which would have been great timing. But you know me, I don't know how to market. Anyways, so he sat there with his poly OnlyFans wife, I guess, talking crap about the red pill, how we're wrong this, how we're wrong that. He's mostly just doing the Ben Shapiro thing. Really annoying. A bunch of idiot people. I think he tried to entrap Rollo into getting illegal photographs of certain women in certain stages of undress. I found it fairly tasteless. I didn't like it. I didn't like how he almost duped him. Luckily, he has a lot of people in our corner saying no. Then his wife leaves him for a twink, and I'm like, oh, I'm not better than this. Not since Pat Stedman went to jail. Not since Andrew Tate went to jail. Not since Jack Murphy got 500,000 traditional conservative men to look at gay porn all day for 3 weeks for research for work have I had this much fun watching the misery of other people reinforce the idea that we were right and you're an idiot. Makes me laugh. And then I see a bunch of, I didn't realize how many, you know how we always see that on Twitter, you see like first name bunch of numbers, you know, like Tom 213657. And then as soon as you see that, you're like, okay, there's going to be some dog shit coming out of this one. Yeah, they're all Destiny fans. All those people are Destiny fans. They're like, you're just mad he lost a debate. You're just mad that his wife left him. You're better than this. No, I'm not better than this. But in the effort of carving a diamond out of this big lump of coal that somebody got for Christmas. Yeah, Christmas came early. This big lump of coal, I decided, why not talk about luxury branding, which coincides with the release of Praxeology Volume 2, Dread. The sequel to the award-winning, best-selling, New York Times mentioned book on building Frame, the anthropological, self-help-ish, how to get laid, pick-up-ish. It defines genre, and it's made its own genre. What is Frame? Frame is a metaphor. What's the metaphor on? The metaphor is about frame. I don't understand what that means. It's because you don't have any. Well, I got Frame now. How do you get it? I get it. And then is Dread. What is Dread? Frame, Dread. Frame is about your own personally experienced and created and self-beneficial worldview. It's a metaphor. I think Seeger was great at talking about that, Doc Seeger, which I'm looking forward to his on cold immersion baths. But yeah, the idea with Frame was to learn how to navigate the world in a way that is instinctive as opposed to like deliberate action and always in your own benefit. It's like a system. And then Dread is the other side of the coin. That is, what do you do when you're in a sexually dead, dying, devoid marriage. And it's not just sex, but it's predominantly sex. There's also the cases of guys who are like, my mom or my wife is really subpar as a mother. You know, she's yelling at the kids. She's like, you ruined my body, which I know it sounds weird, but yeah, there's a lot of moms who are just absolute garbage. And they're just yelling at the kids. They're blaming the kids. They're basically, the dad's watching the kids get a psychological disorder in real time. And then, but they feel helpless against it because what am I supposed to do? I'm not allowed to be mad at women. Women are supposed to be great. And I'm not allowed to stand up for myself because then she'll leave and we'll lose the kids. And well, it just so happens there's like a couple thousand guys who have gotten through that situation, come out of it. And that is leading to the topic here, luxury branding for the modern man. And this is one of the, it's not so much a strategy. It's not so much a mental model. It's more of an umbrella term to understand what ultimately the red pill has found to be a more useful way to become, you know, the praxeological man, as they call it. It's a lot of buzzwords. It's a lot of jargon. I get it. And I know I hate jargon. God knows it took me like hours just to get the de-jargonization of this book, just so people who didn't know who I was could read it and actually understand. I am also not better than this. Oh, Alex, I love seeing. I love it. I love when a plan comes together. What's the plan? The plan is laughing at a tard. Yeah. I'd love to hear Drew Bay's take on Destiny's Misfortune. Why? I mean, I'm always for it. I always like hearing Drew's opinion on things, but what, is he going to say? Well, Destiny's misfortune is that he wasn't counting calories, and you can already tell he's got like he's got an insulin resistance issue, and maybe he needs to lay off the candy, and blue hair color actually adds 20 calories. Like, what's he going to say? Jesus Christ. It's right. It's 6 in the morning in California. I forget that too. Us East Coasters, we're all like, and I'm already up at 6. So I'm up when Californians go to bed. How crazy is that? All right. Anyhow, so I think we got enough introduction out of the way, enough laughing at the misfortune of others out of the way. You know what we should do now? We should have, as a transition to the topic, I am going to go and do like a who's who of who nuked their life for clout. Let's see who I've got behind the thing. First thing we got here is, oh yeah, there's the convention that shall not be named.
Well, welcome to the neighborhood. Yeah.
It was Hunter and Donnie. Donnie with his red-pilled celebrity, Z-tier celebrity marriage, and Hunter with his, well, I mean, his actually wasn't so bad. Those are like low-tier failures, and I'm personally rooting for either of them. I hope they do well. Let's get to the real failures. First off,
I love the way girls smell. I love how they always make sure, by and large, they shower, and they just have an amazing smell to them in general.
Patrick Stedman, you know him, you love him, you love everything about him. He was the guy that was too smart for the red pill. These guys are evil. They're monsters. Let me talk to you about the Illuminati and my great fancy wines. By the way, I'm going to go and fall for a psyop and get arrested and then have my head on a pike so that way Biden can win an election. Damn it. I was just about to move to Poland with my family and now I'm going to jail for 8 years. You know what I should do while I wait for my trial? I should throw another baby into my wife just so she doesn't leave me while I'm gone. Second up on the list. You know him. You love him. The California Raisin.
Not Ryan Stone. I think he's the most important guy in the world. Ryan Stone. Give a fuck about Ryan Stone. Me and him have gone back and forth. Blah, blah, blah. Ryan Stone does not pass the 6-foot test. He's not even a man. So I don't give a fuck with Ryan Stone.
You heard it here first. The most Googled man on earth in 2022 told you that I am the most important man in the world. The most important man in the world. You know it. You love it. Yeah. All right. I think that's it for failures. Actually, we don't have a lot of failures. It turns out there's only like 3 people who have nuked their lives. I don't have a Jack Murphy commercial. I kind of think I should do one. But I'm worried that Sydney Watson will try and like nuke it, but we'll figure it out. Anyways, yeah, the third one is Jack Murphy, who's like, I'm red-pilled and blah, 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 and great families are great, and I'm going to yell at this woman because she's bringing up my cuck thing. I will say this. I've met 3 different guys that are poly or whatever the hell they call it. And Only one of them seems to be somewhat normal, I guess is the way to put it. So Jack Murphy was the one. Not very normal, kind of piece of shitty, which is too bad because, I've heard a lot of good things from people that are friends. It turns out we have a lot of mutual friends. The second one is obviously, Dildo Boy over there, Cuck Smurf. And the third one was off of that Creatrix and Kyle podcast. The one I did there was the third guy there. He seems nice enough. For some reason, I keep wanting to call him Joja because he looks like Filthy Frank, but that's not his name. And it's just because I'm bad with names. I used to be better back when I was doing pickup. I was great with names because you had to remember names. Can't leave with a girl where you're like, what's your name again? I mean, you can, but it's usually not good. And you'll never get a Time for the Couches comedy podcast. So yeah, that's ultimately what I found out through all this stuff is you just talk shit about the red pill and it's just a matter of time before you nuke your brand and possibly your life. So it makes me feel good because it's one of those things because you're always worried about this as a brand. If you don't have any amount of self-awareness, I'll be a little scared. You're like, Jesus. And Nick knows. Nick August in the chat thinking about Poland a memoir. Oh, we're so not better than this. Oh yeah. So we were talking about, and every time I do a book, I'm always like, you know what? This one sucks. This one's not going to work. This one's worded properly. And it's not like self-doubt because I'm still going to do it because like, I don't care how I feel about it. Just get it done. And it's not that I'm looking for reassurances from him because thankfully he, for the most part, doesn't. At least, well, actually, there's a brief period where Nick is actually really good at telling me what I want to hear. And that's just before the invoicing. So I try to never ask for his opinion on something just before the invoice is due. And if I can ask him something, it's always right after it's paid because then he has no reason to tell me what I want to hear. Yeah. But yeah, it's because, and then like during the brands, like, oh, is this good? Is this red pill? And there's always nice to have guys like him and Chesty and that too, because they don't make any money, whether I run my mouth like an idiot or I actually do something useful. And so it's always good to have somebody who's like, if I'm being tarded, they're going to say, dude, you're being tarded. And they'll say it publicly and put me on blast. And I always like that. So it's the one thing I think everybody who brands online needs a friend, like a real life friend, even an online friend, just somebody who's not with you for the clout, as small as this clout is. I don't know what it is about Americans and clout, but it's like, oh, 5,000 Twitter followers. Let me kiss his ass. It's like, bro, aim higher. Get a guy who's got at least 40,000 Twitter followers or at least 1,000 YouTuber followers or something like that. Like a guy who sold more than 10 books, like get something. If you're going to sell out to the man, just pick a man with a good brand at least, Dude, knock it off. That's literally what people are saying. We got Alpha AK, $2 super chat, just in time for Coach's comedy podcast. Indeed. The I'm Not Better for This comedy podcast prior to actionable information based on the red pill, the stuff you're actually here for, but I'm like a little bit of levity because we got 2 hours to fill. And if I don't make you laugh and make you cry, I'm not doing my job. Nonstop Dre, $3.60, $2. Ryan needs better enemies, heavyweight life coach. I beg to differ, sir. I beg to differ. I think the enemies, the arch nemesis, the brand attacks that we're getting, I think it's the perfect level of people. People with enough internet clout that you get a lot of crying in comments every time you make fun of somebody. And they're just tarded enough to pull some stupid stuff that you just can't help but pettily laugh at. Like imagine if it was just a brand of some alternative red pill, like an orange pill thing, and they're doing stuff and we both disagree and there's no fun in that. It's only fun if the guy absolutely like self-immolates. Dude, the DMs I get from people kissing my ass is unbelievable and I have less than 7K followers. Yeah, I don't understand it, man. It's the push-pull of accounts receivable. Pick up and everything. Came for the trolling, stay for the self-reflection. Yeah. And so I always think, and it's good to have these guys here. It's like, am I that bad? And you give yourself that sober second thought. It's like, what's the worst thing I've done? And I'm like, all right, I can live with that. That's good. Yeah, no more person doesn't pay attention to the party. And that's the thing too. So even for me just doing this, entertaining you guys, I'm bringing up some stupid internet drama that I'm not better than. And I normally don't care about internet drama. In this case, it just fell into my lap. So I'm like, how could I not? It's right here. Hooker fell in my lap. How could I not just go for it? But then I'm thinking, most of the people here don't even know who the fuck these people are. So how do I explain this in a, like, nobody knows who Pat Stedman is. In this chat, if you don't have a wrench, you have no idea what Pat Stedman is. You have no idea what he's known for. You have no idea that this other internet guy called him an ostrich. You have no idea that he went to jail. I have to do my job, and that's to make you emotionally invested in laughing at a guy. I both have to make him villainous, unsympathetic, a tragic figure. Do you know how hard it is? Do you know how hard it is to write? And I'm not literate. Ask Nick. Do you know how hard it is to write a story about a clown who destroys his own life, and you don't even know who the clown is? It's hard. I have to establish it. I have to establish this very intelligent, shaven-headed man who was formerly a passport bro, goes and makes himself a traditional woman, Polish woman, you know, the good white race, and builds himself a family and decides to move to Poland, and, you know, he's going to be better. And it's like, wow, it's amazing. A guy did the prodigal son thing, and now he found Jesus, and now he's moving to the motherland. It's going to be great. And then he's like, you know what I need to do? I need clout. I'm going to live stream me going to help the worst human being on earth. And I'd say objectively, if you ask everybody on earth who's the worst human being on earth, I think Trump is up there with like Genghis Khan, the Austrian painter, and probably Rollo, according to the hate, right? And I have to make you believe in this. The Tate one was easy. Tate's just, everybody knows Tate's an asshole. Every soccer mom is ranting about him. So all I have to do is he's like, Ryan's an asshole. And I'm like, perfect. The story tells itself. This Destiny guy, I have to tell the story because you don't know who he is. Why is there a blue-haired guy ranting about poly relationships? Why is he flexing in the mirror when he's 140 pounds soaking wet with 30% body fat? He looks like East Indian tech support. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. But that's his misery and we're over with it. So let's cleanse the palate. Let's get some bobes in there and let's talk about luxury branding.
One of the guys who ran the Red Pill channel sent me a message. I actually appreciate that you took it from an idea-based perspective instead of ever resorting to personal attack. Like, if this movement is actually going to be dangerous, do we need to understand it so that we can take it down? I knew going into it that this might be a hot mess. I'm not going to have those guys back on my channel again. Absolutely not.
Back in the good old days, when beef was just somebody made up some shit about you to pander to their audience of angry soccer moms, huh? Yeah, movement, ideology, philosophy. As soon as you start hearing that shit, red pill truths, as soon as you hear those terms, you check out because the guy has no idea what they're talking about. Like, you guys should know this by now. It's a praxeology. It's literally guys swapping notes. It's Dear Abby with no Abby. You know? Arthur the Red, $2 super chat. Question: how do I tell my date I have 2 kids with my ex-partner? Well, here's my question. Why does she deserve to know? It's just a date, right? You're just dating, just a plate. You're just going to sleep together. You want to marry her? How do you know? You haven't even been on a date yet. No, it's none of her business. She can ask, and you can tell her if you want to. And this is one of those things, like, I'm not going to tell you what to do here, but I will tell you how to think about it. Everything you have in your life has value. Everything. Even if you don't think it has value. Dude, serial killers have value in a girl's life. You know why? Because they spend hours every day looking up serial killers. Go look at Netflix, log onto your girl's account. Oh my God, everything here is about murderers. Murder mysteries, and they love it. So as a man, your life is a mystery. This is a standard Puck thing. Your life is a mystery, and girls love to figure it out. And then by being forthright and open and telling them everything, it's like, here, I have this Hardy Boys novel. You're going to love it. Oh, really? Yeah, it's great. Anyways, the Hardy Boys solve the mystery at the end. The trick is this. The secret villain is this. And then they get out of the cave and live forever. And she's like, why the fuck am I going to read this? Throws the book away, goes get Nancy Drew. It's a lesbian joke, by the way, if you catch on to that. So yeah, let her have some mystery. If you get to the point where you've been dating her, she's awesome, she's trying to lock you down, sure, then mention this. Just so you know, the plot thickens. What's this mean? I have 2 children with my ex. She's your ex? Are you still sleeping with her? Oh, I wouldn't even go on about that. Don't worry about that. Another mystery. Really? Some other girl got knocked up by him twice? What was that? What happened? What was the divorce? Oh my God. Does that help? Anywho, that one took me a second. It is, to be fair, a Hardy Boys Nancy Drew reference. That's like, those books came out in what, the 60s? I almost want to do that. So like, I already have a setup for the new Manosphere book report I don't know what to call it, Masterpiece Theater or something like that. I might add some like Hardy Boys stories in there, just because I used to love them as a kid. Now that was back when young adult fiction was actually for young adults, you know? So luxury branding, what's he talking about? And I'm going to spoil something for you here. I'm going to spoil something for you. In Praxeology Volume 2, Dread, if you read it, you're going to see right after the preamble, introduction, all that stuff, you're going to see an edamame recipe. And it's very confused. Like, why is there an edamame recipe in here? What does this have to do with the book? Mystery. Remember what I told you before? It makes no sense. Now, if you've read the book, you understand why it's there. If you haven't read the book, it's confusing. And you always keep, and then the whole point is you're going to keep that in the back of your mind the whole time. It's like, what the hell does edamame have to do with anything? Is this a recipe book? Why edamame? Why soya beans? Is this a soy thing? Is this progressive? I don't understand. Intrigue, yeah. And it's not like a super hook. My hooks aren't the best, but it's just something you keep in the back of your mind. Why in the beginning of the book is there a guy and a girl feeding a guy a sandwich? Is this a cookbook? I don't understand. And yeah, it's the whole point is like it, and then once you get to the end, it all makes sense. The point of Dread is to stop being taken for granted. It's got multiple definitions. It's kind of like Frame that way, where it's hard to pin down a specific dictionary definition, because once you do, it kind of loses its ability to mold itself to the needs of men as we refine. It's still a very new thing. The Red Pill's only been around for like 10, 20 years. At this point, it's not even in the novelty phase yet. A lot of guys think of it, and this is like how I used to define it, was it was a branch swing for men with an olive branch, which if you don't know what branch swinging means, that is monkey branching is what the MGTOWs used to call it, where a girl is like a monkey when they swing from branch, but the branch is being a man. They never let go of the branch they have until they have a new branch in their hand. So they never leave you. They leave you for somebody. And the idea from the Red Pill, it's something I discovered fairly early, is that a lot of the red-pilled mental models, strategies, tactics, whatever you want to call them, they were female ones, female strategies adopted to male sensibilities. And Dread was like, very clearly a monkey branch, but with an olive branch, which means if your wife starts acting right and tries to win your heart back, that, you know, most guys will probably go back to it. Because most of the time, guys don't actually think, how do I ditch this bitch and move on with my life fucking 20-year-olds? No, they usually think, how do I get my wife to want to fuck me? So it's always about winning her back. And a lot of the first third of Dread is just teaching guys to stop chasing the girl that doesn't want to be caught. I had an old essay about this. And what's this have to do with luxury branding? I'm getting there. I promise. I promise it all makes sense. I had a great metaphor for the concept of luxury branding and Dread as a guy. It's when I used to live in Montreal. I used to live in a place called Villemard. Villemard? Oh no, they don't pronounce the D. Villemard. In French, the last 4 or 5 letters of every word is silent. It's some aristocrat thing. I don't understand it. Anyways, it was about a block away from Angrignon Park. And if you guys don't know that park, that was the one where this Canadian twink gay serial killer killed his gay lover and sent the body parts to all the political parties in Canada. That's what they're known for. Pretty impressive. It's a big park, though. It's really nice. Other than the murder. And I'd walk my dog there, and he hates the walking and traffic, hates the noise and that stuff. So one day he found a way, he broke his leash, like the little hook. He broke it. And we're almost at the park. And then he starts running home, and he has to run across a very busy boulevard to get there. So I'm chasing him. I'm like, dude, don't go there. You're going to get hit by a car. And he was really good. Like, he would just jog far enough to be ahead of me to where I couldn't catch him. And if he didn't want to get caught, he wasn't getting caught. And so we had this cat and mouse game all the way home. And then when we get home, he sits on the patio, or he sits on the doorstep. We had one of those Sesame Street things where it's like 4 steps into a door. Gets up on there, sits down, and then just waits for me. And then I pick him up. I'm like, you know what? Like, kudos to him. He just wanted to go home. All right, I took him home. Sat in the house. Like, you win this battle. I'm kind of not taking you outside anyway to get hit by a car. Sergio Cole, €2 or £2. You're better than this. I'm not better than this. That is what most guys do when they're doing their version of Dread. That's when they listen to, like, their priest tell them how to win back a marriage, when the marriage counselor tells them how to win back a marriage, when their friends and family tell them to win back a marriage. They're chasing the dog, and the dog just runs to where it wants to go and sits down and waits for you. As soon as it wants something from you, then all of a sudden it's nice. The metaphors for that being a lot of guys were finding during their divorce proceedings, the girl's soft landing man turns out just wanted to get laid, and he didn't actually want to to be in a relationship with her. And so usually what happens is the girl will get dumped by the side piece. And then she'll be like, you know, honey, I think we made a mistake. I think we need to give this a go. Not that she loves the man. She's just terrified of being alone. And then the guy, because he's so desperate to chase the dog, in this case, the dog just wants to go home. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to run through traffic again. So yeah, I'll take you home. And that's what most guys do. They end up in there. And all it does is it kicks the can down the road. 5 years later, the girl finds another guy, moves on, checks out, or can't find a new man because the wall cometh for us all. And then she becomes very resentful. You end up in one of those horrible marriages that nobody likes. You know Rollo's article about the myth of the lonely old man? Well, this is the lonely old man. He's the one in a marriage that his wife can't stand him, but she can't go anywhere else. Yeah. Nonstop Dre 360, $2. Isn't there 6 sixes the ultimate luxury for women? No, not at all. I'm surprised most guys don't know this, but the 6 sixes, or however many sixes there are now, inflation, you know, thanks Trudeau, is usually, it's not even about what women like. And yeah, I've seen there's statistics and charts. Shut up. It's not. It's that people say that because that's what other people say. It's that people want to be part of a crowd. That's herd mentality. It's not an actual thing. Girls don't know what 6 foot is. They don't know what 6 inches is. Have you seen girls parallel park? Be 6 inches from the curb. Go see how far from the curb she is. To a girl, 6 inches is like either 3 feet or -2 inches. I'm just saying. Arthur the Red, £5 super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Heartfelt fuck you for the $5 super chat. Okay, this is cool. Could you tell me more? Just ordered your book, Fuck Files. Need to go back and check your work on Dread. How many books are there? I have 3 books altogether. Fuck Files, Praxeology Volume 1, which is Frame, and Praxeology Volume 2 is Dread. And they all serve a different purpose. I will get back to that in a second, though, because I don't want to lose my place on the luxury branding preamble I have all set up here. I've got my notes. I don't want to stray. Dread, back to the example of the dog running home, happened again. It turns out, because I didn't learn, I thought, oh, okay, so it's just this piece slipped out of the little clip, so I put it back in. I pulled him apart. Broke free again. And this time I had a new plan. So he starts doing the same thing. He's like, well, I'm just going to start running home. It's like slowly jogging home. But he never just bolted for the home. He always wanted me to chase him. So I just ran to the dog park. I bolted towards the dog park. Like, not even like, oh, is he coming to follow me? I'm like, nope, I'm going to the park. I promised the dog I was going to the park. I'm going to the park. So the dog looks over and he's like, I don't want to go. And I'm terrified, but I'd rather not be alone. And so he starts chasing me. And I stop at the gate. And then he stops right by there. And I pick him up and I throw him in the park. I'm like, you son of a bitch. That's Dread. Now, there's no guarantee. The dog could have just as easily ran into traffic. But at this point, I have already accepted. Like, I can't catch him. If he wants to run in front of a car, there's nothing I can do to stop him. Nothing I can do. And yeah, that sounds sad. And yeah, I don't want him to get hit by a car. But ultimately, what power do you have in that situation? You have none. The only power I had is what I was going to do. In my case, I'm running to the park. And it just so happens it had the wonderful effect of the dog would rather be with me than with traffic. Thank God for that. And that's Dread. Ryan left out the part where he gave him a good pimp slap. I don't give anybody a pimp slap, Marty. I don't use violence. You don't need violence. Okay, so that's the point of luxury branding and the economic model and the part where the edamame, and spoilers, skip the next 5 minutes of this podcast if you don't want to know why the edamame beans are in Dread. Okay. At one point, I talk about luxury branding from an economic standpoint. Clary would love this, economics. And they're like, what are you talking about? Well, and there's some capital, I think an Adam Smith thing. They talk about the commodification of goods. The idea is, as you're producing goods, people are buying goods, you got the demand curve, you got the supply curve. Eventually those things even out. There's something called surplus, supplier surplus and consumer surplus. In other words, what are you paying on something versus what would you be willing to pay on something? And from a sales standpoint, what are you selling it for? And what do you have to sell it for not to lose money? There's a whole lot of things that go into that, but ultimately, if everything works perfectly, it all converges to a point where producers make zero profit. It's like at zero. And that is when you get to commodity pricing. They always talk about pennies. And soybeans were a great example of that. It's the most prolific crop, I think. I think it's beat out water and coffee, I think, and oil. I think soybeans are number 1. If not, they're in the top 3. Point is, soybeans cost nothing. pennies for tons, penny a ton kind of thing, right? Extremely. So that's the thing. It has no value, zero value. It's essentially free. They call it commodity goods, and it's all the same. You can buy a soya bean from Walmart. You can buy it from Trader Joe's. You can buy it from Louis Vuitton, and it's the same soya bean. So there is no advantage buying it one way or the other. What do you do when you have a commodity good? The reference here being commodity goods are men. Talk about the inflation of that later. So put a pin in that part where I talk about that. So you're like, what is he talking about? What somebody will do then is like, a fancy chef is like, okay, so soybeans, they cost nothing. How can I make a great amount of money on this? And then branding is normally how it's done. That's why, and the easy example you can think of yourself is no-name brand cereal versus the brand name cereal. They're all made at the same factory. The only difference is the coloring on the packaging. And you see people like, have you ever tried to feed your kids no-name brand cereal? They have a fucking temper tantrum. But have you ever done the thing where you take the no-name brand cereal and you put it in the branded box? You give it to the kids, they're like, dude, I love corn flakes. You're like, hey, corn flakes, kid. That's flakes of corn. You're like, Jesus. It's kind of where masculinity's at right now, by the way. And that's when I said put a pin in it. That's what I mean. Everybody's talking about, I'm a good father and I have a great job and I would never treat you like that other guy. The problem is every guy is like that. Every guy has a good job. Every guy that a girl sees. So for her, what value is there in a good job? Like, I could throw a rock and hit 10 guys with good jobs. Why is your good job any better? They're all interchangeable. You're a good father, and we already know this from experience. How many of you guys in the chat are from broken homes? How many of you guys have a stepfather? At least, maybe 2 stepfathers, but at least one. At least half of you. At least half of you. Probably more, because we're kind of self-selecting on this one. Fathers are essential for a child. Yeah, they are. But it seems like mom can throw a rock and hit a new one. Get him picked up in the next 6 months to a year. I wouldn't worry about it. She's not worried about it. Men are the soya bean of sexual dynamics. There is nothing about us that's not interchangeable. We are already disposable, but not only are we disposable, we're interchangeable. So back to edamame beans. Some fancy chef is like, you know what? I'm going to take those soya beans, I'm going to boil them, put a little salt on them, a little soy sauce, some lime, sprinkle it, put it on a plate, give it a fancy name. I'm calling it edamame. And then there's like a funky way you got to eat them. You got to like chew on the pod and then the thing comes out and it's like, oh, it's a fun little event. And you put it in a fancy place. So like, oh, the fancy people are eating edamame. Well, I'm going to eat edamame. Meanwhile, some poor peasant somewhere is like, yeah, I'm going to have a bowl of soya bean right now. And they're like, oh, pleb, you should have been having edamame like me. It has lime juice. And they're like, wow. And that's kind of what Dredd has to get too, right? Yeah, had a stepfather. It's amazing what problems a hard drug addiction will help remove. Well, that's a whole other conversation. I come from an unbroken family, and even I have no illusions about being from a normal functioning. And that's just it. Everybody talks about, I wish I had a normally functioning family. Like everybody else. Everybody else has those non-functional families. So that's a normal family. That was the whole point of last week when I said, tradition isn't what we want, it's what we have now. Yeah, that is a normal functioning family, these ones with stepdads. The guys with the unbroken family, they're still in love? That's not normal. That's fucking weird. So as a guy, you're edamame. You're soya bean making yourself an edamame. And how do you do that? Well, what does soya beans tend to lean on? We're cheap. We're a low quality source of protein that's very easy to see. It has a good job and it'd be a great father. And nobody eats those. But the edamame beans, oh, they're fancy. They cost $20 a plate. 2 pennies of edamame beans soya beans cost $20. Well, it's more so about what it tells you. And this is the thing about branding is people will pay 10 times as much for how cool the brand is. They'll pay 100 times as much for what that says about you. And this is what you're trying to do. How can I take the soya bean good? And you could be I'm not saying don't be a good father. I'm not saying don't have a good job. I'm not saying don't be emotionally abusive or don't not be emotionally abusive like the other guy. You can do all of that stuff. You can be as soya bean as you want to. But if you ain't sprinkling salt, soy sauce, lime juice on this, then you're just wasting your time. Yeah, the experience women get out of it, it's more so about the social aspect of it. Remember, women are competitive. There's inter and intrasexual competition. The how do women compete with other women and how do women compete for men? Same as men. How do we compete to get women and how do we compete with other guys to be the coolest guy that can get women? And you got to kind of remember that both of them are there. And so for, yeah, a girl trying to win you over, that's a thing. That's game. Everybody understands that. If I wrote on it, it would just be a synthesis of what everybody else has already done. Nobody writes on how to take advantage of intersexual. Women like to flex on other women. You know what I know I've mentioned this probably like 100 times. If you're on the podcast, I've heard about the birthday party story. It's like, yeah, it's because it's happened so often. Nothing is better for your sex life than going to your kid's friend's birthday party and having some of the other soccer moms flirt to you in front of your wife. I've had no less than 3 stories that I can recall off the top of my head. I'm sure there's more if I went and looked. Of a guy working on his dread, making himself attractive, making himself available, not being afraid to flirt with some other girls in front of his wife. And then one guy even went so far as to schlep one of the wives in the closet. But anyway... and then getting a sexually charged mom on the way home, you know? And that's the idea of luxury branding. Like I'm looking at it here. And that's kind of how I summed up the thing. I use much better wording when Nick talks about it. The reason we call it dread is because men who are being taken for granted love a good revenge story. It implies that your wife hasn't been having sex with you and that she's holding back on purpose. It makes a man angry because her actions cause the 2 criteria necessary for anger: grievance and pain. The idea of filling her with anxiety and eventually some dick appeals to the man who both loves his wife and hates how she doesn't love him back in the way he wants her to. And that's why, and that side note, most of the things you see within the red pill have that same bait and switch to them. You know, they call it game. It's very dehumanizing for women. I don't like how you guys call it game. Why can't you call it seduction or flirting or whatever? No, I'm calling it game. You're just a piece on my board, bitch. And I was like, as a guy, you hear that, you're like, damn, that sounds awesome. I'm calling it dread. Teach that bitch a lesson. You're like, oh man, that sounds awesome. And then you read it, you're like, wait a minute. What does edamame beans, working out, dressing well, not putting up with shit and building boundaries have to do with teaching that bitch a lesson? It's like nothing. It's the bait and switch. You're like, how's your sex life? Actually, it's great right now. Thanks. All right, well, do you still need to teach that bitch a lesson? It's like, probably not. Probably not. Yeah. It's a bait and switch. One of the few bait and switches that's for a man's benefit. Once you get through it, you start to understand that dread is merely the opposite of being taken for granted. Welcome to luxury branding for the modern man. And it turns out there's like a lot. It's not a small topic. And that's the thing too. Like when you explain it very top level, you're like, you want to be a luxury brand. Luxury brands are both irreplaceable and socially a flex, I guess that's the way to put it. I only teach Twitter bitches a lesson. Fucking Marty. Do I have to get a lineup of paid models on my front door just like the fancy clubs? No, you don't. That's just, honestly, because that's a very easy thing to do, because you know what? You can pay the models. And this is why I keep telling you guys, I remember there was a specific field report on this one too, where the guy was at Applebee's with his wife and kids, and he was flirting with the waitress, and that was him performing dread. And that's why my saying is, hitting on the waitress at Applebee's is a display of lower value. Having the waitress at Applebee's hit on you is a display of higher value. What the fuck does that even mean? Well, when he was flirting with the chick in front of his wife, that puts her in the awkward position of he's using the waitress to embarrass his wife. That's how she sees it. That's how everybody sees it. Why is he using me to teach his wife a lesson? Does he think I find it fun? Not really. It's awkward, and now I have to be like courteous about it because she's not going to let me get tips now. And then the wife doesn't like it. It's like, because remember what I told you, it's not, when it came to like cheating, it's never about the sex. It's about the embarrassment. And this is why when most guys, I have a section here on blue pill cheating versus red pill cheating. And the idea of blue pill cheating is just validation. I want this. I want this. And I want the girl to do it. But the reason that blue pill guys end up nuking their marriages over it is because they don't pick up a chick when they're out of town and then whatever, and they just move past her. Like, you know what? I got my needs met. Don't really care. Wife doesn't fuck me. Better go get some sex. No, it's, I'm a worthless husband because my wife won't do this and she doesn't respect me. And he wants to bitch about it to some chick. And then that chick is predatory. And it's like, yeah, let me just suck your dick. And you're like, yes. And then she goes, because she hates your wife, she'll flex to your wife. It's like, oh, I guess your husband was gone on Tuesday, wasn't he? Now the wife is embarrassed, same as that waitress, and that's why they get married, and that's why they get the divorce, the acrimonious divorce. This subpar husband, who's not bad, He helps with the kids. He's got a good job. I'm not attracted to him. I don't respect him. I don't admire him. And then he has the balls, after all that I do with him, you know, being in his presence and existing. After all of that, embarrasses me by sleeping with my least favorite person at the office? Fuck that guy. That's how it plays out. Morning, Ryan. Nice glasses. I prefer the wider lenses too. Thank you, sir. The doctor said he sold me on reading glasses. I don't need them for anything. I have astigmatism. And when I read, I didn't know this until they explained it to me. They're like, yeah, when I read, it's been there since I was like 20. I just realized this is why I hate reading. It's because it takes my eyes too much time to focus on things, so it makes me slower to start, and it strains my eyes, and then I get tired. So now when I'm this, I'm like, oh, dude, I can read the smallest text again. It's like when I was 28, and I'm still reading like tiny 10-point fonts. Kellyanne Conway's husband needed Ryan's book more than anybody. I mean, every guy who's fucked up his life needs it, but for the most part, those guys were the research into how it's written the way it is. So you can't help guys. They can only help themselves. The best I can do is just write down what other guys have figured out in hopes that it will survive longer than the forums that they got it from, you know? So luxury branding. And there's a lot that goes into it. Like the easy stuff is the self-improvement stuff. A lot of guys equate Red Pill to self-improvement, which it has self-improvement in it, but it's self-improvement to a purpose. And I think that's the problem that, like, you guys already know I have an issue when we talk about critical thinking. Critical thinking doesn't exist. You can build up knowledge on a subject, and then that level of knowledge allows you to make better decisions about that subject or about other subjects when there's connections to it, right? The more you know, the better you are at knowing things. Critical thinking is the idea that, well, I can learn some tips and tricks that doesn't matter what the topic is, I can figure my way out of it. And that's how you get shit like Destiny, who starts a sentence with imagine, and then he makes up a scenario that makes perfect sense if you don't realize his axioms are absolute nonsense. You know? Moment of silence for the Red Pill guinea pigs. Yeah. Can't stand that. So in the same way there's not critical thinking, there's also not self-improvement. I think it's Tyler Durden. Self-improvement is just masturbation. Yeah. Aimless self-improvement means you're just doing things and then justifying to yourself why they're good. Self-improvement. What did you do today? I had a cold shower. Really? What did that help? Well, it always ups your testosterone. Well, how much? Oh, it just ups it. You could feel it. So basically, if you feel better, it's good. Yeah. So sugar pills. No. It's better than that. Why is it better than that? Because Sagittarius. I'm like, all right, fair enough. The point of self-improvement within a Red Pill context is because you're aiming at something. In this case, I need to be less fat. I need to be more muscular. And I want to be, look attractive. Why do you want to look attractive? Because when you act attractive and you look attractive, people will treat you like you're an attractive man. Same as like rich guys. Have you ever the real one, the book one, the book Tyler Durden. Have you ever seen Met Gala, like all those fancy events that you see celebrities and rich people going to? Do you ever notice how they don't bring their own clothes? It's always, this designer gave me a $10,000 dress to wear at their event, and then they're going to sell it after the event to somebody else for like twice as much or something like that, right? Wear these diamonds, wear these gems, give, what was it? Floyd Mayweather. Was it him or was it 50 Cent? Maybe it was Tyson. Anyways, some company got him to wear their baseball cap for free. And it did great for their brand. And Tyson's like, I think it's Tyson. And I got a free hat. That's awesome. That's what I mean here. It's called the halo effect, right? The more attractive you are, the more people want to do attractive things for you. And so the idea of getting working out, being in shape, eating well, dressing nice, combing your hair properly, washing your ass properly, there's a point to that. It's not just, I'm doing these things for the sake of them being good. That's just replacing religion with Red Pill. And I have no desire to become the newest Saul falling off his horse with the lightning bolt from God bullshit. No. Besides, we have like 1,800 Judases and like one Paul. So it's like, we're not really good at religion anyway. No, the point you're doing that is because you want to take advantage of that halo effect. And then it comes with like changing your mentality. Because a lot of guys who are unattractive, they act like unattractive people. It's kind of like, you ever hear the fat guy? Like the fat guy is always the fun, jolly one to be around. He's always the fun life of the party. And it's because he has to be. Because he's the fat guy. Nonstop Dre 360, $2 super chat. Ryan is so alpha, steroids lowers his testosterone. Jesus Christ, dude. You're gonna turn me into a Chuck Norris meme. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Let's just focus on what works here. Growing up, I thought ethos was the weakest form of persuasion. Oh yeah, it's exactly the opposite, especially with women. Women base their truth on what is the most influential, popular, and high status man believe. Well, I'm going to believe that too. That's how Canada got 3 elections with Trudeau in office. Because he was the prettiest guy from the most famous family in Canada. And he was running the party of the Canadian spirit. And they're like, yeah. And they started firing chicks and diddling chicks and busting up inflation and banning medicine and no more grocery. I think that's what got the soccer moms when he banned grocery bags. You know that in Canada, at least in Toronto, you can't buy a grocery bag anymore. They have to, no. You can't take these 2-cent disposable ones. You have to take this $10 disposable one that is much bigger. It's so bad now that companies here actually have a bring your bags in. Like they'll give you the big plastic bags, but you bring in all your old ones. So you don't have to have them sitting in like a giant garbage bin in your house. It's just ridiculous. Warren G. Harding is so the cutest from Family. Oh yeah, so even Saskatchewan they're gone in. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And it turns out, but that's the point, right? Like it makes no sense. But people believe that. Why? Well, the 2-cent plastic bags, you would have to use 1,000 of them to equal the same amount of plastic that comes in one of those reusable plastic bags. 1,000. So if you lose one of your reusable plastic bags, or you don't use it 1,000 times, you're actually using more plastic. But it makes you feel better. And that's the difference. So again, edamame, luxury branding, exactly, the whole thing. You're working out for a purpose. I am working out to get strong. Why do you want to be strong? Because maybe you're an older guy. I'm in my 50s. And this is where joint problems start to affect your posture and all this stuff. No, I'm working out so I am healthy. And why are you healthy? I'm healthy so I can still play around with 25-year-olds, you know, and not. But that's the point. It's self-improvement to a purpose. It's not self-improvement. It's just goal-oriented purpose. Goal-oriented purpose. Same thing. Why are you dressing better? You're married. Well, I'm dressing, and I think, what's this? Patrice O'Neill. He used like the reference to the, have you ever still watched his special? I think it's from Elephant in the Room, where he talks about a fisherman, and that a fisherman being a guy who plays the field. You know, yeah, and you get the fish on your boat, and the fish is like, well, why are you on other fish? Why am I not good enough? And then the fish wonders why you come home smelling like fish. He goes, I have to smell like fish so you can act right. And it's true. There's true. Like your woman has to, in a subconscious or conscious level, it's up to you. It depends on your relationship. She has to believe that if I don't make him happy, somebody else will. And the best way to make that believable is to make it true. And the best way to make that true is to ignore all of the stupid brainwashing you've been hearing for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your life. Of women are great and can do no wrong. You need to do it. Man up and marry. Like all, I don't care. Whatever your Disney fantasy is, doesn't really matter. And that's why dread is such a hard concept, because you have to start with a guy who's like, I believe what I want to believe, and I still want to believe it, and I think it's right, and I think it's true, even though it has no bearing on what's happening to me right now. And I need you to change her so that she fits into my model of the universe. We used to make fun of guys for that. Remember that? The world isn't fair, so I'm going to bitch and moan until the world is fair. And we're like, you stupid millennials, wait till you get into the real world and see how it is. Now those people are in their 40s. They're in their 30s and 40s. These women aren't acting the way I want to. We need to change women so they make my worldview make sense. It's like, well, maybe if the world isn't doing what you want, maybe that's not the world's fault. The world is going to do what it's going to do, and you're not that influential. So what you need to do is start looking with your eyes and not with your heart. You know? Ooh, I got a textile on as a free marketing gift 6 years ago. Using it ever since. No problems with it. Well, that's kind of nice. Never understood. They give you a drink with a paper straw, but the drink itself is in a plastic cup. Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. It's because somebody told a story about some turtles one day. Never mind the weirdness of paper drinking liquids through paper. Like not even wax coated paper. At least the wax you can understand. Well, the wax leaves a bad experience in people's mouths. Well, it's also water resistant, so maybe you can start with that. Dark Knight Dev, $5, 3-cent super chat. This is why I like Dev. Dev knows the game. Coach, can you Couch, can you explain the extremes of narcissism in men and BPD in women and how luxury branding influences those dynamics? Well, that's kind of a big topic. We can go there. Yeah, we got time. So what he's talking about here is extremes in narcissism and BPD, or borderline personality syndrome. And I've talked about this before. This is why psychology is kind of it's not a science. It's more, it's probably closer to a praxeology, but it tends to pretend it's a science, which makes it very disingenuous. If you take human behavior on any metric, you draw a bell curve around it, and you're going to find that most people are in the middle of the bell curve. Most people act within a definable range of things. First standard deviation is like 60%. Second standard deviation is like another 20%. Once you get to the third standard deviation on either side of a bell curve, you get something like 3% of the population. I'm sure there's a math nerd in here who's like, actually, the derivative of a third standard deviation is 2.73% repeater. And like, thank you, sir. Thank you for saving the podcast. We had a rounding error and you saved the day. Anyways, so narcissism, the way they define it is based on what people do with like a sense of grandiosity, forcing people to, and it's like a very shitty definition. I always like the Last Psychiatrist way of describing it. It's like how people would describe, how would take an anthropologist and describe a dinosaur. Or describe a man. What is a man? Well, a man has an eye, a foot, and a liver. Okay. Men are eye, feet, and liver people. Got it. Well, a dinosaur has an eye and a foot and a liver. All right. An eye, a foot, and a liver, missing the qualities of dinosaurism. All right, that's a person. Do you see what I mean? It's like a very, like, it's not a wrong definition, but it's really not helpful. And then the guys who invented these definitions in the DSM, they always say these aren't meant as diagnostic tools. If you look at somebody, all right, eye, yes, foot, yes, liver, yes, missing dinosaurism. You'll probably get men, but you're going to get a lot of like monkeys in there too, right? So it's not a very good definition, but they need to be a science, because once they're a science, they get to tap into that whole Medicare and socialized medicine grift. So like, no, we're going to use that as a diagnostic tool. And that's how you get people thinking narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder are diseases like cancer. It's not a disease, it's a disorder. And all a disorder is, and the reason you can tell the difference is, for cancer, there's a cancer test you can do. You can take a biopsy. You can see the difference between cancer cells and normal cells. There is no narcissism blood test. There is no BPD MRI test you can do. There is no physical signs of something going on. It's all decisions. And yeah, it can be compulsions, but it's not addictions. Difference between an addiction and a compulsion: nobody sucks dicks over a compulsion, but they will suck dick over an addiction. So how do they influence sexual dynamics? Well, I mean, it really depends. There's some theories floating around, and I think they kind of, like, I don't like to focus on them because they tend to play out, and it's just more so an understanding of why things did the way they did. Where the more extreme one party is, the more of an extreme opposite party they tend to attract. So if you'll notice, a lot of like bodybuilding, powerlifting types, they tend to have very voluptuous and curvy women. Meanwhile, you get like the more lean, thin types, they tend to attract much more lean and thin women. It's kind of like that. So the more of trait narcissism that a guy has, he tends to attract more borderline women. And on the other side, or at least, actually, I shouldn't even say he's able to attract more borderline women. It's more that he's able to maintain a relationship with more borderline women because they have kind of complementary skills. Narcissism is, and the best way to describe it, as if like you're properly defining it, narcissists are people, predominantly men, who build themselves an identity. In other words, they make it up. And then they force the world around them to adopt it. It's 100% ego. I am an alpha male. I am the whatever Tate calls himself. There's Pat Stedman. I am the smartest man on earth. There's Destiny. I am smart and blah blah blah. And you see what I mean? That's bringing it back to the drama. I'm in a poly relationship. I'm really smart. I paint my hair blue. I'm cool like that. All those little blips that everybody's had, little things over this time. These are all his little fantasy world. His is building his identity. He didn't work for it. He just demands people reinforce it because working for it takes effort. And if you just fake it, it's fine. Now, we could probably, if I wanted to go 4-hour Rollo Tomassian, I probably could give you a whole thing about the evil psych of it, and then lying versus deception versus detection, sexual dynamic things. It's off topic here. We'll skip it. Throw a super chat in. If it's big enough, I'll probably talk on it a little bit later. But in modern times, it doesn't really work so well. Yeah, wouldn't that be everyone when they say I am X? Oh, yeah, dude. Ned, when you see chicks online arguing, saying, I am a mother, and therefore my opinion on Elon Musk is, like, it's right there. It's shit like that. That's why everybody knows there's a lot of crazy people out there, like more than they've ever seen. Is that, because it's online and the crazy ones congregate, doesn't really matter. And that's why identity politics kind of rubs you the wrong way, because identity politics is socially accepted extreme narcissism. As a woman of color, as a person of color, as an LGBTQ ally, what is a narcissistic fantasy if not the whole LGBTQIAFBI? Rollo on that Hulkster rocker band. Well, that's different, and I'll explain why in a minute here. So yeah, you got these identities, and you force people, you demand that they do it. It's like you're the director in your own one-man play. You're the main star, and everybody else is a set piece or a co-star, or they're all in relation to you. That's my frumpy friend that sits there while I'm ranting at Starbucks. This is the girlfriend. It's a great article for it by Last Psychiatrist saying if you like a girl in white heels, then you're probably a narcissist. He brings up how a lot of people brings up how the East Indian meme of I want hot blondes. They don't actually like blondes. I was raised around a lot of East Indian guys, Sikhs and that. And they always loved to date the hot blondes in my small town. And by hot, it means she was blonde, but it was like a 4. And you're like, and he's talking about her dude, this is a 12 out of 10. And you're like, all right. But then you realize they're not looking at these girls as people. They're not people. This is a status symbol. This is blonde hair. This is boobs. Yeah, the 50 extra pounds. Just let that go. The butterface. It doesn't really matter. She checks all the boxes. It's wild because we don't have blondes here at all. I think that's why they like it, because we don't have it. It's kind of like the Asian fetish that you see a lot of Western guys have. It's because there's no Chinese girls in them. I mean, there is now. Thanks, Trudeau. For the streams, it's always the Saturdays. I have videos during the week, but the streams are always on Saturday. Beyond that, it's when I have a topic or when I want to record some stuff. So that's usually it. Now, that's narcissism. How does that factor in? It turns out it's a dark triad trait. It's very attractive. Why is it attractive? Because girls love to latch onto the strongest personality in the room. And yes, it's pathological. And yes, it's more compulsive than actually working for it, than those guys who've actually earned it. But girls can't tell the difference. And so they're attracted to raging narcissists. That's why Trump is 3 supermodels in on marriages. If you're that confident about yourself, girls will just latch onto it because they can't tell the difference. Now, ultimately, then when you're talking about Rollo's Hulk Hogan band, that's what I'm saying the difference is. I'm a rock star and this. Yeah, you can just wear pants and tell everybody you're a rock star like Russell Brand. I drink booze. I sleep with underage girls. I'm a rock star. Rollo's thing, on the other hand, I play the guitar. I've been playing it for 20 years. I do licks. We do studio time. That's the difference between what I call healthy and unhealthy narcissism. In both cases, a guy is building an identity and having other people reinforce it. The difference is one guy is putting in work towards it. He doesn't Rollo doesn't have glam rock like this. The Russell Brand narcissism types have that. I'm the greatest man in the world. I'm the leader I'm the president of the manosphere. They are doing work. Rollo's case in the band, he's doing the work, and then the work has an identity manifest from it. Difference in this is what I talk about in Frame, you don't want to be Don Draper, and that was, you get, and I use the Mad Men reference here because it's one that usually people can understand. It's a pretty new enough series that people can all remember, and the idea was Don Draper was actually a guy named Walt Whitman, played by an actor called John Hamm. And so people can understand that, okay, so it's a character in a show that's playing a different character in the show played by an actor. The difference between a narcissist, a healthy and an unhealthy narcissist, is the difference between Dick Whitman and John Hamm. If in the movie, you see it all the time, or in the show all the time, somebody calls Dick Whitman, you're not Don Draper. You're a fake. You're a fraud. You took his identity in the Korean War. And then he cries and bumbles and does some crazy shit. And then the writers fix it and whatever. That's what the narcissist, the bad narcissist is. The good one is John Hamm, where he's like, you're not Don Draper. You're just a fucking fake. And he's like, dude, it's a fucking job. Are you stupid? He looks at you like he got 3 fucking heads. That's the difference between, and this is when I think when people say do the work, this is what they're getting at from a fundamental level. Whatever identity, branding, whatever your edamame bean branding is, whatever your luxury branding is, you cannot get there by just play acting the part. You cannot get there by just reinforcing it. Yes, you will get laid. Yes, you can build some followers. It is not sustainable. It will eventually blow up. Eventually, your wife will cheat on you with some twink, divorce you, take your $200 of tax payments that you made on her behalf, and then move on. And then the red pill guys will make fun of your blue-haired bullshit for like another year. It happens. Wait, why don't you want to be? Yeah, that's why you don't want to be Don Draper. In this case, yeah, you're doing the things that make you attractive. You know, the working out, the dressing fine. You're like, oh, you're just insecure. You're doing that to fucking get women and blah, blah, blah. You're like, dude, shut up. Like, I don't care. The work is going to be there whether they accept an identity or not. And this is where the disorder part of narcissistic personality disorder comes in. The disorder part is what happens when somebody rejects that identity. And this is the Don Draper, Walt Whitman part. So if we're going to put it in like a scientific way, so we all can understand with big fancy words. When you tell a narcissistic personality disorder type, an NPD, when you tell an NPD that you reject his identity, not disagree with it, not attack it, not the enemy of it, but you ultimately reject the framing, you're going to get narcissistic personality disorder. Which is how I got that Tate clip, by the way. Because he's building, everybody knows Andrew Tate is not the Andrew Tate you see. That's a skin suit. That's a brand identity. He's not the alpha male. Supposedly, like he was shitting on, I still got to do Tekken for pennies. It's going to be the funniest ad, I think. I'm hoping if I do it right. Look at that man. He's married to 4 and he's playing Tekken for pennies on Twitch. I'm like, oh, like that's a really good title for a series. Meanwhile, supposedly somebody was telling me, I have no idea if it's true or not, that he's on there playing like Mario Kart and shit like that. So it's like, he just says shit because he wants to posture. And that whole ad there came from when I stopped accepting the posturing. I'm like, he's just making this shit up. There's no way in an open carry state some guy's sending a bunch of people who pay money to learn how to be alpha males as like a hit squad to some other dude's place. There's no way. Well, yeah, that's the term, Filbert. Narcissistic rage is what they get at. And that's the psychological terms you got to understand. And yes, I think psychiatry is largely bullshit, but the research is fine. It's just how it's played out. So narcissist creates a narcissistic fantasy requiring narcissistic fuel from everybody around him. Those who reject the fantasy get what's called narcissistic rage. It's kind of similar to anger, but it's different. It's more fight or flightish. Anger is, I have a grievance and a pain. Rage is more an ego, straight up ego. It's like if you ever piss off a 2-year-old. You know how they just start screaming and you can't stop it? It's more like that than somebody who's pissed off because you hit him on the head. Cuck Smurf, yeah. Most of these dudes are closet nerds, just own up to it. It's more fun. Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're Dick Whitman in the other example there, think of all of these parts that go into your fantasy. I don't play video games. I'm too busy being productive. I bought many Lamborghinis. If somebody points out, oh, look at this shit right here. That's a narcissistic rage. How dare you? Do you know who the fuck I am? Meanwhile, you get somebody like me who's like, I don't brag about things that I don't do. Or just I can't even think of another example of an alpha male. But yeah, some other alternative, ass model of Instagram. And you're like, oh, look at him playing video games. He's like, whatever. Oh, dude, right behind me. Perfect example. I can't remember. What's his new name? God damn it. Hold up a sec. I got to look this up. Brian Pillman Jr. Anyways, he's got a new wrestling name now. I should probably start using that. Hold on a second. I got to look it up. Oh, do they not have his new name? Lexus King. Yeah, sorry, Lexus King. The daddy issue wrestler. It's pretty fun. Looking forward to seeing where he's going from that. He plays like World of Warcraft on Twitch streams all the time. And he's like, everybody's like, look at this nerd playing his video games. He's like, whatever, I gotta go do a wrestling thing. He isn't really phased by. He's the John Hamm. Are you stupid? It's a Twitch stream. Relax. Meanwhile, you get Andrew Tate on the other side. This is fucking bullshit. And that's ultimately from a luxury branding perspective where you guys want to get. Now, and that's only the one half. That's narcissism. I've totally rolled that explanation. It's like an hour in right now. I should have made a different topic for that one. All right, whatever. I'll call it 45 minutes. NPD, BPD. If the timestamp is wrong, in the comments, let me know where the topic changes to that. I'll be more than happy. Yeah. BPD, borderline personality. So I already talked about the bell curve, but I was only talking about the one half of the bell curve. You go to the other half of the bell curve, that's where you get borderline personality disorder. And that's the third standard deviation of the lack of narcissism. And that's if narcissism is the director of a one-man play and everything else is a set piece, BPD is the co-star, the most famous leading lady. And the idea of them is they don't have an identity. A narcissist makes up an identity. The borderline is without identity. And so they latch onto the identity of the strongest personality in the room. And this is where you get like love bombing. This is why everybody here who's had their borderline BPD girl experience, this is how you get it. A BPD girl, desperate for an identity, sees something in you. Maybe it's because you're a good mark. It usually is, because this looks like the kind of guy that's a good mark, and that's a subconscious thing. And they'll ask you all these questions. And because you're a guy, dude, nobody's ever asked me what my perfect girl is before. And of course you're going to run your mouth. My perfect girl cooks and cleans and wears an apron and blah, blah, blah. And she keeps a mental note of all these little questions. And they're very good. And you don't even notice it's happening. And then she decides to foster her identity based on your fantasy that you've just created for her. And she lives up to that. And then this is why BPD girls are always the most fun when you're in love. She's the perfect girl. She's everything I've always wanted. She does this, she does that, she's everything. And there's a reason why. It's because she listened to you talk, and then she just adapted to it. That's it. It's like a chameleon. And for her, it's like a big challenge. Like, I want to be the best girl in the world for this guy. And then usually after like 3 weeks or whatever, she's like, I'm bored of this one now. There's no more challenge. I have drained this swamp of all the good nutrients. And that's when they switch over again. It's called Darvo. Or not Darvo. Wait a second. Rolo told me about this one. It's like... Was it the BPD roadmap? Yeah, no, they only got the 4 stages of BPD here. I'd have to ask Rolo what it's called. Having said that, that's kind of interesting. I might go look into that later. Your favorite Manosphere Exicon president just released an ebook, 10 Laws of the Alpha Male. By the way, when is Dread Audio planned to be released? I have to record it first. The girl wants to renovate the den. So I have the next week to do the recording, and then we got to move the office, and then I have to do all the sound stuff to it. So look for a late January release, sooner if I get better at it. So we'll have to see. Oh, so what is this? So, and ultimately to answer that idea of what's the difference between like how do narcissism and BPD factor in, the more of a narcissist you are, the more borderline person you tend to work with. If you have a string of relationships that never go anywhere and die off, it's probably because either you're a narcissist dating average girls, like 1 standard deviation, or there's 2 narcissists which can't get along. Eventually it blows up. And then the ones that tend to be good, like that Sid and Nancy, that's a punk rock 70s reference. She was absolutely borderline, he was absolutely narcissistic, or sometimes vice versa. The mommy waifu bullshit. Those tend to be somewhat stable, even though they're dysfunctional as fuck. Meanwhile, like if you have healthier versions of narcissism, you're probably going to get a healthier version of borderline, because you're not putting up with shit. You're not letting a girl gaslight you, right? In this case, it's where, yeah, I love watching the 49ers play football, and then all of a sudden the girl even dates like, I've always wanted to go to see one of those games. You should take me. And then all of a sudden she's a 49ers fan. It's called mirroring, and this is what women do. This is part of their mating strategy, is if they're with a man that they like, that they notice, like they, as a subconscious thing, start to like what he likes. This is why when pickups, they talk about, yeah, the signs you want to look for IOIs, when she mirrors your body language. If you sit like this, she'll sit like this. If you put your hand on your chin, she'll put her hand on your chin. And it's like a little test you can do is like, as you're talking, just do some kind of like tick with your hands and see if she mirrors it. That's an indicator of interest. Like, oh wow, that's crazy. But ultimately, that was the thing of it. Like right now, I know I'm there because my girl watches Minecraft Let's Plays with me. She plays Stardew Valley with me. I'm like, dude, yeah, these are goofy tells, but they're tells. And it's not that she does it because it makes me happy. It's that she genuinely makes her happy. And if she fell out of love with me, she'd probably hate those things, and that's fine. Yeah, I had a girl ask me why I seem to have all the traits of a narcissist. She was obsessed with me, though. And you know, this is the problem, too. A lot of guys, and this is the, again, back to the John Hamm, Don Draper thing. When your girl asked you, you seem to have all the traits of a narcissist, even though she's obsessed with you. If you were the Walt Whitman, you would take that as an insult. Oh, I'm not a narcissist. I'm a good guy. I'm this, I'm that. You know what I mean? He starts bumbling and crying when she says, you're not John Draper. Meanwhile, as John Hamm, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like, just have some fun. Because he notices that. Like, oh, yeah, she's obsessed with me. I'm living fine. I'm not psychologically... I've done the work to make sure I'm not psychologically a midget. But yeah, it's fine, whatever. So you don't have to be Andrew Tate to pull it off. Andrew Tate can't even pull it off. You remember that? Remember that brag he used to do? Where he's like, yeah, my girls tattoo my name on them. And then you see he has like court reports coming out for his oncoming date. And then like the list of witnesses, there's like 40 witnesses. It's all the chicks that tattooed his name on them. Turns out they were just writing down the evidence for when their escape. Where'd you get your shadow box? They're called shadow boxes, by the way. Or did you jury rig a picture frame? My girl made it, actually. She found a picture frame, and then I think she made it. She took the picture frame outside, and then she made the shadow box on the inside. The idea was supposed to be a placeholder, and I was supposed to get a bigger one. Like a proper one is pretty big. It's like a mantelpiece thing. And I was like, no, I kind of like it where it's small. Like, yeah, but he doesn't properly display this. I'm like, I like how it's all a very condensed version of my military thing. And there's some things I left out of it. But that's fine. I'm like, I like it there as just... Because when my buddy just did his retirement, and he had a proper sized one. Like, they have the ship's ensign folded in the proper triangle. Like, we actually have a different way of folding ours than the Americans do. You guys fold yours so the stars and stripes are on the top, and then the stripes are on the bottom. Ours is folded so the Canadian flag is dead center with the two stripes on either side. Yeah, give her something to build, or she'll be doing drywall again. Oh, that's already happening next month, or this month. But I don't know, and I think with that, because the wall behind me is kind of like the knickknacks of everything I've enjoyed throughout my life, or everything that's kind of defined me as a person and everything I've done. I like how it's just a part of my life and not the part of my life. I never liked the idea of military as identity, and a lot of guys get that, where they can't talk about anything. But and in extreme cases, the joke is the guy who gets retired off the base, dies, has a heart attack like 3 feet from the gate. It's like, no, I ain't doing that shit. And so I like it. The fact that it's a small, compressed shadow box in and around all the other things that I enjoy. Yeah, it's part of you, doesn't define you. Exactly. I refuse to be the Don Draper of the military. Women with hairy arms are easier. That's what Royce says. I remember, dude, I'm old enough that I remember when the saying used to be, if she smokes, she pokes. That's the one I remember. Chicks don't smoke anymore, although I've heard they started. So yeah, that's how that stuff factors in. And this is one of those things that I could tell you this, and you can listen to this, and you can internalize it, and you can learn it 100%. It does not change the game at all. And this is why, other than as an exploratory example on how to like diagnose what your problems are, I don't find it's good from a game perspective. Because if you could understand everything about narcissism, about borderline personality and all this shit, it doesn't make your game any better. What makes your game any better is the deliberate action, the boundary enforcement, the outcome independence, the abundance, actual dread, luxury branding. All of this stuff matters. The idea of understanding the psychological makeup of whether your girl is borderline, third standard or second standard deviation, whether you're 2 or 3 narcissists, like, it's good to know. It doesn't change anything. And I think that's the other thing. A lot of people look at disorders as an excuse, especially women. You see this where it's like, oh, well, I can't even think of a disorder. I'll just say borderline. I'm bipolar. And bipolar for her is like, well, if I act like a bitch and fuck with you, it's not my fault. It's the disorder. It's like, you are the disorder. The disorder is a collection of the decisions you make. No. A doctor told me. Therefore, it's not my fault. And that's what I hate about this. And whenever I talk about this, I just know this is my don't eat paint warnings. And I hate don't eat paint warnings. I got to get back to like the don't eat paint warnings. But a lot of guys hear about NPD. Oh, that defines me as what I am. Oh, that's great. Now it's not my fault. It's like, no, it's still your fault. You can stop acting like that at any time. You just have to want to. The reason you do is because it's comfortable, it's familiar, and when in doubt, we default to our training. And that's how you've practiced your life, right? Quentin Schuver, congratulations on the new book couch. Reading Dread at my local pub has led to some interesting conversations. I've noticed a lot of typos. Typos? That I refuse to believe. You might find... Like, I doubt there's more than 5 full typos in there. And even then, not actually typos, but the wrong word spelled right. Guarantee this, 'cause the 14 times I've read it. Here's how you do this, by the way, at the end. You read the book, and you find your errors. And then once you get to the end, you read it again until you find the errors again. And you do this until you can read it an entire time and not find a single error. 14 times. At the end, I was literally finding 2 periods instead of 3 for an ellipsis. Yeah, well, that's the other thing, too. That's the only thing that worries me is because I'm Canadian, I interchangeably look at American and Canadian spellings and not think anything of it. And for the case studies, I tried not to, like, if somebody was spelling something wrong on purpose, I always leave it as is. There's this one about, so you married an adult alcoholic or adult child of alcoholics, something like that. I can't remember what it's called. And there's a lot of spelling mistakes in there, but those ones are there on purpose. One sec. Those ones are there on purpose because it lets you know the subtext of the field report. And I find if I took those out, it would remove that. Because if you read it, it's disjointed. The guy's kind of confused, and it's like a train of thought, and the details sometimes are not important, sometimes are important. Sometimes it's just like he moves on to ones without exploring things. And the idea is you're supposed to know by that point in the book what to look at in a field report. You're like, dude, this guy sounds like a mess. He's typing fast. He's making mistakes. He doesn't know where the important details are. And it gives you the subtext of this field report. So when he's sitting here talking about the signs of an alcoholic wife, you're like, okay, so this is what an enabler sounds like. And then you see it in your field reports. If you're later on, you're like, dude, I noticed this. I'm just rambling off the cuff. All the details are there as I can remember them, but I can't tell you which ones are more important or less by reading it. And the idea is you're supposed to learn from that. And you're supposed to see an example. Because I think there's nothing, like I can tell you what being the adult child of an alcoholic for a wife would be like in a type 2 captain, which is the captain and his neurotic, constantly complaining passenger. But if I can tell you about it and then show you an example of a guy who's in it, making progress with some glaring errors, I think that's far, far better for you to learn from. Because then you're like, oh, okay. Because a lot of red pill stuff is, there's really just like the same things explained 1,000 different ways from 1,000 different people. And one of those ways will resonate with you. The adult child of an alcoholic is BS. Okay. People are confused by the proper use of there, and there. You know what? That's the one that sucks too, because sometimes because when you're typing, if I use the wrong one, you have to basically read the whole thing to find those. I'm pretty sure I've gotten all of those. I don't think any mistake. If there's any mistakes in there, it's definitely not those. There is one spelling mistake in there that's very obvious and very glaring. And I don't want to mention what it is, though. But Nick, he just comes back to me as soon as he sees the book come. He's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, it's the one, literally like a single sentence that I didn't run by him first. He's like, you son of a bitch. Yeah, reading how people type in conversation shows a lot of their thought patterns. Exactly. That's the whole point of field reports. You're starting to see your thought patterns. And as you're writing it down, your writing and your thought form a synergy. Your writing influences your thought, and your thoughts influence your writing. Well, ultimately, it's backwards. The thoughts influence your writing. And then as you go back and read through your field report, you're going to see how you're thinking in a clear way. Because when you're in the thought, you're thinking about the thought. But when you step back from it and look at it again, you're looking at it more as a critic of your own thought. So for a lot of guys, they'll write a bunch of field reports where it's just describing their wife. Oh, she's doing this, she's doing that, she does this. I know she's doing it for this reason. And then they give them a day or two and you're like, read through your field report, rephrase this all as if you're the actual main character in your field report and not her. And then they realize, okay, so it's like, okay, I put up with this. I let her do this. I assumed her motivations were this. Turns out I was wrong. And then you realize that's the problem. The problem isn't your wife is a bitch. The problem is every step of the way you allow her to act bad and then justify it in your own head. Yeah. Anyways, malaprops. What the hell is malaprops? Yeah, same you can say about somebody's signature. I mean, that one, I'm less inclined to go with that signature one because I've noticed that's a little more phrenology. When you see somebody signing, well, he puts hearts over his eyes and it's this. I'm like, maybe. I just find like looking at somebody's writing and listening to their voice tells you more about it than just a signature. So, I mean, I'm not saying a signature is bullshit, but I'm saying it is definitely similar to that. But I would find this one to be more reliable, you know? And that's the whole point for field reports. I think I talk about that in Frame. Why are you writing this stuff down? I was there. I know what happened. You don't, though. You don't. Your ego smooths off the rough edges. Your ego will forget the parts that sound bad and remember the parts that sound good. And if you're forgetting parts, your brain will just give you that feeling that you knew it. Oh, yeah, I know. And then you get them to describe it. This is where a lot of guys, I know. Like, well, explain it to me. And then they explain it and you notice they don't know. You're like, yeah, your brain told you knew. That was your ego fucking with you. Now that you have to write it down, you actually have to quantify it. And then you realize. And this is exactly how a guy will learn. This is what they call OODA loops. Observe, orient, decide, act. It's a term taken from the Air Force, and the whole idea is the faster you're able to iterate on a situation with this system, the faster you're able to, air dominance in the Air Force or, in any of your life to stop making mistakes, right? Stop making mistakes. And that's the idea. You observe, oh, okay, I notice I gloss over the details. I gloss over any detail that involves me making a mistake, and I emphasize the mistakes that she makes. Why are you de-emphasizing those? Because I don't want to admit that there's anything wrong with me. It's a Dr. Robert Glover nice guy behavior, Hiding the badness. Anything that makes me less than perfect, I need to hide that from other people because otherwise they won't like me. Which, by the way, that validation-seeking codependent behavior is the male adaptation to borderline personality disorder. How funny is that, huh? Men are being raised to be defective women. It's kind of like how women were told they can be anything, so they decide to be a drunken frat boy working for finance. And that's just the thing. And supposedly, I don't know, there's some Evo Psych paper on it or one of the social sciences, one of those bullshit ones where they're talking about as a society gets what the hell was it? Gets more prosperous or something like that. That men start to act more like women and women start to act more like men. But it's not just like women start acting like cool dudes. Women act like the caricature of men, the worst parts of men. And then when men start acting more feminine, they act like the worst parts of women. That's why when you see those effeminate gay guys ranting on TikTok, they're not just like gay guys who like reading Colleen Hoover. They're catty. They're sarcastic. They're flippant. Ugh. Those guys. And it's like most people who they say are homophobic. They're not homophobic. They're like, I just can't stand that shit. I don't like that shit with my wife. I sure as hell don't like it with a dude. Yeah, you mention evil psych all the time. Evo, evolutionary psychology. It's a field of study where they look at evolution, but instead of through the genetic filter, they look at it through a mimetic filter. So the psychology of people as they grow up. And that's where a lot of red pill acts actually come from. If you really want to cut down to, like, how would you describe this in a very neutral term? The red pill is a synthesis of evolutionary psychology and pickup artistry and seduction. Synthesis of those two things. This accent. I don't think my Canadian accent gets Evo Psych wrong, bud. What are you talking about? Jesus Christ, bud. Is OODA better than Paul's LUCA? What the hell is LUCA? Let me look this up. What does that stand for? Do you know? Acronym. Last universal common ancestor. I don't think that's what he's talking about. Yeah, you're going to have to tell me what LUCA means, because I don't even know what that means. What's your thoughts on master and slave morality? Nonstop Dre 360. All right, we're going to have to do a timestamp on. Let me do a timestamp, make fun of some tard here, and then we'll answer your question.
Name a bigger red flag than a white guy with a podcast. I'll wait.
I am not impressed. I will have you know, I'm like 80% white. The podcast is goddamn good, and I don't want you anyway. You got random Iroquois art and not art on your walls. You're not my type, sir. Or madam. I don't know, you allowed to say any more? Totally off topic. A part of me really misses the mane. Like, it made me feel and look old, and so I like shorter hair. In fact, I need a cut right now. It's getting a bit too, like, Cosby Show, you know. But yeah, part of me really liked the fact that I had that long flowing hair just flowing around. Wouldn't that make Rollo the founder of the Red Pill? There's no real founder. No, he's just, they always call him the 3 R's of the Manosphere, or the 3 R's of the Red Pill. The idea is the 3 people that popularized it. The Ben Franklin to the other guy. And that was Rollo, Royce, and Roosh. But I mean, there's a lot of names that you've probably never heard of. There's Keone Galt. There's Dalrock, Ian Ironwood, Athol K, Solomon II. What are some of the other names that you've probably never heard of that are like extremely influential? Poke. Heck, even Jack Murphy was part of the Royce and DC years, you know? But it's just those 3 were the biggest names, the Royce, the Roosh, and the Rollo, and that's kind of what popularized Red Pill. So that's where they get, and then the idea was somebody was making fun of him. The same way you guys call me Couch, somebody called Rollo the Godfather. Look at this guy, the Godfather of it. Like it's some kind of mafia thing. And he just took that, he's like, yeah, fine and fair enough. And then everybody who wanted to introduce him were like, the Godfather of the Red Pill. And he's just like, all right, whatever. It's kind of like how Noam Chomsky gets called the most important intellectual of our time. And then Chomsky hates it. He always gets up and he's like, all right, I get everybody loves this quote because it makes me sound important. But if you really read the full context of it is they think I'm the most important intellectual of all time. So they don't understand how I can write such horrible stuff about American foreign policy. It was literally to make fun of him. And people just like, yeah, let's go with it. So yeah. Oh, listen, understand, confirm, act. I wonder, is that, like, did he make that? Interesting. Oh, active listening. Okay. All right. So on this one, and I'll there's no judgment on this, whether it works, whether it not. It's not the point. There's actually a mids watch that's coming up on this one. I haven't recorded it yet, but I will. Where we were talking about Hunter Drew, the family alpha, and direction of the Red Pill. It was a very meta conversation, and the idea was the Red Pill is horrible from a branding perspective because there is no leadership. It's like ISIS. There's anybody can be that. Just call yourself that, or feminism, whatever. You can't point. Oh no, not even like feminism. Worse. That anytime you say something is red pilled, everybody's like, well, who the fuck are you to describe it? And it's true. There is no authority on it, right? And that's kind of why I like it, because for me, I can say this is red pilled. I have no authority within red pill. Rollo has no authority. Yeah, there's some trust built up because we've been consistent over it for a length of time, but that's just start talking bullshit. That disappears right away. But it's the idea without some kind of hierarchical authority to draw on, the things that you say have to stand on their own merits. It's on you whether things sink or swim, right? But from a branding perspective, what's kind of better is then, and it was Hunter was the example, but I'll say on Paul here. On Hunter's example, when he says family alpha stuff, that's his thing. That's his branding stuff. That's his literally edamame bean. It's the same branding experiment commodity goods, because red pills information is a commodity good. It's free, it's cheap, it's available. Anybody can have it. Pennies on the cent. Nobody cares about it. So if you wrap your brand on it, in which case Paul Benjamin is, branding is wrapped around it, he can be an authority on his own thing. Now, ultimately, it can rise and fall on its own merits. I like Paul. I like to think that his stuff will stand the test of time, absolutely. But it's always possible that, one or all of us are idiots and you guys are like, this is bullshit, and you move on. which is fine. But the one advantage he has when he does this from a marketing perspective is now he becomes the authority on this stuff. So if anything needs to be taken on its own merits and there's a disagreement, well, this is Paul's system. You can't say that's not Paul's system. It's Paul's system. He is the authority. Now it all rides on not just his logos, but his ethos. You know what I mean? Ethos, logos, pathos, status, the emotions that are elicited, and the feeling and the appearance of logic. I have no desire to be some kind of ass model brand of Instagram, like the Ryan Stone power. No, I'm fine with it. Just like, this is red pill stuff. This is the level of credence that it's been given. These are the reasons why. You can take it or leave it. I could care less if you guys think of me as a brand or not. I really could. The only reason I do any branding at all is because that's the easiest, that's the best way to get people to know who you are. Like, you have to do it. Every job scrubs toilets, and the branding to me is the toilet scrubbing of this. Toilet scrubbing of the red pill. You know what I mean? And that's why the coach thing is always funny. I always hated coaches, the idea of a lack of accountability, but they still want to have that idea of being the authority, the accountable one. Same as I was just talking about the branding one. And that's why everybody calls me Couch. Rolo has been around at Soul Suave since 2001 or so. Pickup was already going strong in the 90s. Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing. If you ever read The Game by Neil Strauss, they were talking about the Usenet. Like very early 1993, 94 internet, back when it was just like a collective email chain. And they had alt.fast.seduction. And that was where they started talking about pickup back in the day. And before then, there was like video series and speed dating. And before then, there was like the 70s leisure suit pickup culture there. So there's always been an element of that, all the way back to like Don Juan DeMarco seduction stuff. There's always been some element of it. It's just that the internet created a centralized forum for it where it could and that's where it really blew up, it's kind of similar to the story of how Amazon just went from being a bookstore into like the giant Walmart of the internet, The video of Paul trying the cinnamon challenge was hilarious. Jesus Christ. Paul, what are you doing, my brother? Yeah, that short with the blue hair song, funny as shit. Oh, yeah. Well, what can I say? I'm not better than that. If somebody wants to be an asshole and draw first blood, I got no problems being a prick for as long as I can. Hence why I've still got an Andrew Tate ad that's like 3 years old making fun of him. Hence why I got shit like this.
I don't usually post pictures of my kids online, but they're infants and you can barely see them, so, it's fine. But a YouTuber named Ryan Stone tweeted, showing off the F trophies for clout. So the babies are trophies that I'm showing off. It's perhaps not a surprise that a picture of a proud father would be so upsetting to the sort of man who clearly never had one.
Funniest shit ever was like, dude, you're on Daily Wire. I'm like, what the fuck is Daily Wire? And we're like, this huge show. Ben Shapiro did it. And they showed me this thing. And I was like, I just knew it had to be done. I'm like, I got this. Let's do an MLG gaming ad for the podcast. Which, side note, by the way, everybody has like a legacy. Like, oh, he was known for creating Windows. Oh, he made the iPhone. Mine is adding fuck trophies for clout into the lexicon of traditional conservatives. There's so many guys online now who are like, dude, I can't, every time I see some conservative posting his kids and his wife online for you to like him more, all I think of is like, oh, fuck trophies. Clary just ranted about Walsh for 7 minutes. I would. That's the problem is like, I get it though. He's brand building. That's it. I actually watched one of his, he was actually one of the inspirations for my Chick Talk series. It was like a satire. Default Friend actually has a great article she just put out on us on her Twitter right now where she talks about Zoomer humor is pretending to be retarded and then laughing at the millennials who take it seriously. Look at how stupid these idiot kids are. With the example lately was like dinks. We're dinks. We do this, this, and this. And they're just doing it like to have a laugh. Everybody knows it's like a satire, right? But then, conservative Americans don't understand what satire is. So they take it sincerely and are like, look at these idiot kids with their not wanting to have kids. And then the idea is it's hilarious watching the thing. And I watched Matt Walsh doing that with like Dylan Mulvaney, which he must want to suck his dick. I don't know. The amount he talks about her. or him or whatever. I don't even know what it is anymore. What are you allowed to say? Elon, help me out here. No, I'm not a dink. Where was I going with this? Damn it, distracted me. Oh, yeah. But the fact that he takes this stuff so sincerely, and the part that hurt me the most is that it's not entertaining. Like, he just sits there, he acts like the really boring dad who's like, this is stupid. And I'm like, you know what? Why don't I take, and it's no different than when you watch these goofy MGTOW black pill guys like Tyler the Fiend, Ribby the Frog. And if you don't know who these guys are, don't even look it up. It's not worth it. I know there's another one, Undead Chronic. It's all like edgy 14-year-old, women ain't shit. And I thought, across the board, you got incels, you got traditional conservatives, they're all doing this. Look at the Zoomers making fun of us on TikTok because we don't understand what satire is. And I'm like, why don't I take that and just lampoon the whole idea? And so Chick Talks were there as a satire. The idea was like, take Zach Morris, give him a Miller Lite commercial vibe. You know, this is great. Like the nihilist, let's laugh at the fucking chicks on TikTok. And the idea is you're kind of having a laugh with the audience, right? About, I'm Matt Walsh making fun of the chick with the Bud Light. But then I try to make it entertaining, and then people are like, these are the greatest things ever. And I'm like, oh, they didn't get satire either. So yeah, they never got it. They don't get it at all. And then I tried to do a satire of it, and they didn't get that either. But then people started to like it on its merits. Like, it turns out the best video on this channel, best performing video, is my first Chick Talk. And I'm like, fuck. That one didn't. I don't know how to make it more on the nose, but whatever. We're there now. So then I have Manosphere Mornings, which is more like, all right, you want me to just make fun of stupid people? Let's do Manosphere Mornings, where these guys are sincerely stupid. Like, it's almost been a year since that idiot with like 2 million followers was like, hey, loving your kids on Christmas is for beta males. And I was like, dude, how can I not make an episode on this one? It was fucking hilarious. Don't love your kids. That's how they get you. Yeah, so I might have to do some more of those. Nick actually likes those. He goes, I think those are pretty funny. I'm like, yeah. But he gets it, though. That's the problem, is like he gets satire. So if I just want to do a sincere making fun of other people on Twitter, you kind of have to go over the tradcons, because they're the ones that are sincerely stupid, as opposed to the Zoomer humors, which are ironically stupid. Or the woke people. But I mean, making fun of woke guys, it's easy. You got a dude dressed in a wig, getting nose surgery, drinking Bud Light. It's like, what can I add to that as far as humor that isn't already hilarious on its face? First off, you're drinking Bud Light. Don't talk to me about anything. Don't talk to me about anything. Bud Light only exists when you need beer for something. Like there's these things here. You have like root beer flavored drinks, squirters, like the Crystal Light things. And you're supposed to spray it into beer and you make a root beer. But you want to have like a less flavorful beer because then you get the flavor and it tastes just like root beer. Root beer, but you can get drunk. And I'm like, of course you're going to use Bud Light for that. Why would you use like an IPA? It'll just like ruin the taste of the root beer. No, you need a beer that nobody can take. Well, I think people do get it, Con Savage. That's the thing. When he's saying people don't recognize it anymore, there is a subset of people that get it. And then there is a large group of people who don't get it, which makes it even funnier for the small subset. The problem is, from a branding perspective, that's a horrible way to do things. Horrible way to do things. Ribby, Undead, and Taylor have their own Rule Zero thing too. Dude, everybody has one. That's what makes me laugh so much. Like, I'm a fucking nobody. I'm triple Z level internet celebrity. You know how low that is? Like Carrot Top laughs at my celebrity. That's how bad it is. If he even had an idea what it was. I can go anywhere, nobody knows. And the fact that like people are ripping off our stuff, not ripping off, but inspired by our stuff. Like there's more Chick Talks now than there was before. Matt Walsh is like, a YouTuber? How do you know I'm on YouTube? I was only tweeting. You looked this shit up? You looked up my videos? You stealing my content? What the hell? Rule Zero? Now we made Redman Group with the convention that shall not be named, and then we moved on, we made our own, we called it Rule Zero, and now everybody else has one. The Fresh and Fit guys were like, hey, it's like Rule Zero, but we're going to bring drunk chicks on there. It's like, all right, fair enough. The whatever is like, all right, drunk chicks and a sex doll, but we'll make it for white guys. All right, fair enough. Now, I don't know what the Ribby one's called, but it's probably like the Black Pilled Power Hour or something. I don't fucking know. Who's Carrot Top? Oh, he's a prop comic, kind of like Gallagher. He's kind of, he looks like that one villain in Dick Tracy. I guess you're not going to understand any of these references, by the way. It's like, how is this guy, if he doesn't know who Carrot Top is, how's he going to know who fucking Gallagher is? How's he going to know about the Dick Tracy movie? He's not. It's going to be he's like, now I got to look up 18 things and watch 3 movies just to understand your fucking reference, dude. It's not my fault, man. We had a satellite dish growing up, so I got to have pop culture from the 40s to like the 90s all at once. That's why he has such boomer. I don't have just boomer references. I have silent generation references. You know you're in there when I'm like, hey, 20. I joked around with Nick because there's like the saying is 23 skidoo, want to buy a duck? Or that's the chief 99 or what's the beef? These are references from like the 50s. Like pre-boomer references. And I always use like 42 skidoo because it sounds better. And Nick's like, actually, it's 23 skidoo. I'm like, you're the first guy ever who understood what the fuck I was talking about, man. Congratulations. Yeah, show me the money. Even that's too new of a reference. That's like 1997. Yeah, where's the beef? Where's the chief 99? That's from, whatever. Never mind. We're just going into rambling nonsense right now. You're like, what the fuck is this? It's almost like I almost want to do, I don't know how to do it yet. I've had it in the back of my mind. It's like, how could I make a piece of content like this where it would be Zoomer humor or millennial humor, but with silent generation references? Like, to the moon, Alice, from the Honeymooners, but like as an MLG video. I'm like, I think that would be hilarious just because the people that understood the reference will not understand like the autistic editing of the video. And the people that understand the MLG autistic editing of the video will not understand the reference. So it's everybody that's confused by the entire thing. And I just find that hilarious. Like, here's a good example. When I had the Who's the Funniest Member of Rule Zero ad, the whole point of these is to do it up like an MLG, like Major League Gaming video. And if you guys have ever watched those, you always got these like tons of inside references, like Snoop Dogg, smoke weed every day, the crazy dude, like, wow. And you got all of these references. The Honeymooners, no, it's a TV show. Think of it like the Queen of Kings for the 1940s. That makes sense? It was like pre-Lucille Ball. Ryan knows the origin story of Astro Boy. That's more than enough. Yeah, 360, no scope, all that stuff, right? So my inspiration for this one was I was going to poke fun at Rolo and all the Rule Zero guys and like in like a playful way. And like, this is actually pretty good. Asking like, who's the funniest member of Rule Zero? And that's when I made this ad. And it's MLG. So if you understand anything about it, you're like, why is this so autistic? But the autists that love these kind of videos are like, who are these guys?
Hey, brother, who do you think is the funniest member of Rule Zero Squad? Now? What's your favorite comment joke of theirs? I think Ryan brings good laughs. He does. Ryan is like British humor. It's like Monty Python. And people are like, if you get it, you laugh your ass off. If you don't get it, you're like...
Fuck Ryan Stone.
People just don't get his humor. Who's the funniest one on there? You mean besides John Fitch? I think John Fitch is the funniest member of Rule Zero, but he's unintentionally funny. With the robot dogs.
Seeing these robot dogs in real life was pretty surreal and terrifying.
And Cappy's pretty funny. It can be pretty funny too. Who's the funniest member?
But it's, and like everybody says the same thing. I had to watch this 4 times to understand what the fuck was going on. And that's what makes me laugh. So it's like you watch it the once and you just kind of take it in as a work. And it's kind of entertaining. It's snappy and you're like, holy shit, that's like brain cocaine. And then you watch it again and you're like, wait a minute, what did that say? And then you pause it and you realize like it's so densely packed with references. You're like, what the hell does that mean? And then you have to go look that up. Why is he making fun of Matt Walsh? Why is Tate in there for no reason? And it's like, there's a whole iceberg of lore in a 15-second ad about saying John Fitch is funny. You know what I mean? Yeah. As for you, Eanes Unfap, I moved to Canada on 9/11. I'm 36 years old in Ottawa. Should I stay or should I go? Ottawa's the city that fun forgot. I honestly, because I'm a big fan of the Freedom Convoy, the Canadian Freedom Convoy, and I think it really epitomized the whole East Coast disdain for the West Coast thing, along with a lot of other grievances. I have nothing but a seething dislike of Ottawa. Absolutely. I went down there for my first year outside of the military. I went down there for Remembrance Day, and I'm like, I'm never going back. I hate that city. I hate the people in that city. I hate the attitude of the city. There's nothing about it. As much as Americans hate DC for being a swamp, Ottawa is like worse. And I just can't describe it any other way. They would rather initiate martial law than to let some truckers keep their jobs. Like, that's how much it was bad. Paul Benjamin is Ralph Cramden and Clary is Norton. Dude, that would be... The fact that I know what that means and then actually, like, that actually fits pretty well. That actually fits really well. I'm just picturing Clary with that goofy, like, Soupy Sales from Popeye outfit on. You know, the one with, like, the dangling tie and the blazer that's, like, down to his knees and the goofy hat. The fedora that's all canted. That'd be fucking hilarious. One of my favorite shows was 2.5 Men with Charlie Sheen when I was younger. Ryan Souls jokes are like Dark Soul levels type of lore. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Soupy Sales. What the fuck is he talking about? Soupy Sales. Was that Soupy? No, it was Wimpy from Popeye. Soupy Sales was somebody else. But I think they all had the same look. One second. Let me look up Soupy Sales. You can tell where, like, the episode is done. Yeah, actually, yeah. Soupy Sales and Wimpy from Popeye. The same generic thing. The lovable hobo kind of look. That show sucks and you know it. Yeah. So anyways, that's it. So if you've learned nothing else from this show, and I hope you did, it's the idea of why luxury branding is important, the idea of self-improvement being bullshit, the understanding of how narcissistic personality disorder, and borderline personality disorder affect sexual dynamics, but not to hyper-focus on it. Just keep it in the back of your mind as a way to help you process and understand the decisions you made and the choices you've done. We need a hee-haw and a Raccoons reference. I think Raccoons is not only an 80s reference, but it's also like a Canadian reference. I don't think America even had the Raccoons, did they? That's like, what was it? The Raccoons, Banana Man, and Video. You know, the one with the penguin on the island? What about Seinfeld? Dude, we're like 20 years before Seinfeld, man. Am I the only Gen X old dude in the chat? No, Nick's a Gen Xer, and I'm right on the cusp. I'm like first year millennial, so with the satellite dish and the older brothers and sisters, I got to learn a lot of Gen X stuff. Yeah, the sprinkle of Mr. Oizo. Oh, nobody else knew that was a Mr. Oizo beat. I was like very scared about that because I'm like, dude, if I get a copyright thing on that, and I don't know why I added it either. That's the song is called Mr. Oizo. He's only got one music video. You look it up, you'll see the one. It's actually a really catchy music video. Yeah, don't forget the most important question of all, what do you want? Actually, yeah, Bish. Yeah, that and how this all factors into Dread. And so it really is, like, I get it. We're chucking shit, we're throwing ads, and most red pill guys are just running their mouths on Instagram. Like, hey, you guys kind of love me. This is what an alpha male is, and Christianity's, and like, yeah, fuck that. There's actually a real body of work. I do take it seriously. But at the same time, I don't take this place seriously. It's kind of like the Canadian military. I took my job in the military seriously, but the Canadian military was so dysfunctional that I didn't take the organization seriously. Does that make sense? Kind of like that. Not a single Disney reference? Well, I could reference Star Wars. But what do you want me to do? Reference Fantasia? Reference the 1980 stuff like the Aristocats and that? If I was going to reference that stuff, I'd rather reference Ralph Bakshi. Because it was way better because he had like tits and swearing in his and hookers. Speaking of which, fun fact, this is like my most embarrassing admission when it comes to pop culture, is that I have not watched all of the Frazetta Bakshi films. I have not seen Fritz the Cat yet. I really haven't. And I've got to go watch it. Ryan's like an intellectual Jerry Seinfeld. I think Jerry Seinfeld's like an intellectual Jerry Seinfeld. I think I'm like the Destiny version of an intellectual Jerry Seinfeld. Like, I can talk fast, I can color my hair, but yeah, not a single Pokemon reference. Oh, dude, I know nothing about Pokemon. If it wasn't in Smash Brothers, I don't understand. I know Mewtwo and Pikachu and the game where you walk your dog and then you have Pokemon battles. That's it. Is Rollo Kramer then? I mean, he did drop an N-bomb once, so he technically is the Kramer. I will tell you this, though. So that's one of the things. So, like, right now that Dread is finished, now that Frame is finished, once I get the audiobook done, and the last 20 or so episodes of Midswatch, and the next 15 to 20 episodes of the Sidebar series. Once that stuff's done, I am officially out of... That's everything. That is everything Red Pill that I think is deserving of of a retelling. Everything that's important. So what do I do afterwards? And Marty actually had the good idea. I love when you ramble about Billy Blank's movies with like the most amazing level of detail that nobody cares about. It's actually pretty entertaining. This channel will probably pivot, or I'll start a new channel and do it on there. Yeah, I'm barely too old for... Yeah, me too. I just aged out before Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z. If I was another year or two younger, I probably would have been into it. But yeah, so it'll probably be on this kind of stuff. Mostly because I'm like, yeah, okay, the red pill stuff is great, and it's almost kind of fitting. Because I always call this stuff cast iron, right? You're not supposed to be in the red pill for like fucking 10 years. Unless you're a content creator, there's no point to it. You guys are supposed to come here, learn what you need to learn, fix the things that you had mistakes on, carve yourself out a good life, and then have enough confidence in your system of discovering and understanding and navigating the world that you don't need to come back. And then you look around and you should basically be one of those guys who's red pilled himself, done the work, and then look back at all those goofy red pill guys thinking, look at these fucking nerds. How do they not know to draw the fucking owl? If you don't get the reference, don't worry about it. Somebody will explain it to you. Cast iron. You buy it once, use it for life. And Carl did that. Carl used to be the co-host of this show. He decided, he's like, all right, I think I've got everything I need and everything here's getting stupid. I'm out. Hasn't come back. Took his books down. He's done. Good for him. Good for him. And then me, I'll probably do like, well, what do you do now once you've talked about all the red pill stuff? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Maybe talk about Billy Blanks. Yeah, I need a reminder sometimes not to fall back into bad habits. You know what? That's even part of the process, Gino. That happens. I talk about it as not the roller coaster, the highs and the lows. A lot of guys do that. When they first get red pilled, they do the things, but they still think of this as tips and tricks and parlor tricks and all this shit. And then what'll happen is they make themselves more attractive. They be less unattractive. The edamame bean process, right? They get to the top and their wife actually responds to it fairly well. Their sex life improves, or they get laid normally. Either way, the problem is solved. And then they start thinking, reward good behavior, don't reward bad behavior. But they still think like that former blue pill self. Rollo has an article on it called Children with Dynamite. Purple pill is the nomenclature we use for it if you want to use the jargon. And what they'll do is like, okay, I want to reward my wife for being such a good wife. And then what's the reward? It's me acting like the way I used to act. Being more comfortable, not creating anxiety, not doing any of this dread stuff. And then the wife's like, oh, the things that I was attracted to just disappeared, and their sex drive kind of kindles too, and then it goes down. And then the guy starts getting mad. I don't get it. None of this shit's working again. So they get angry, and then they start doing dread again, and then things get better, but it's harder because the girl's now is like, I don't know if this is really him being attractive or if it's a fake signal. And this is all subconscious, right? So it's how it plays out. I'm talking as if there's agency, but there's really not. And so, Gina, when you're saying a reminder sometimes to fall back into bad habits, the reminder is already there. Is once you start thinking it's just a trick, and then you go back to your normal self now that everything's going well, and then things go down again, you realize, oh, it's not a trick. It's fundamentally a different way that I act upon the world to become a better person and have better outcomes. And then that second time through, if you're smart, is when the guys realize, okay, I'm not supposed to fake it, I'm supposed to make it. And then they internalize the stuff and they realize, I'm not supposed to be just tricking her. I'm supposed to be tricking myself into being better and not acting like a tard. And then that second process. And there's usually like a secondary anger phase. They call it residual anger. And it happens. I talked about it a bit on mine because the military is what red pilled me. It's my 30 days before retirement essay. And I revisited it 2 years later, realizing, dude, I sounded like I knew everything. And I knew what I was doing, super confident. I'm like, yeah, I was a fucking asshole. And that's what inspired in Frame when I talked about the 6 months of being an insufferable asshole. That's not the wording, but that's it. Where once you become red pilled, once you start carving out your success in life, once your sex life is on point, you are going to be insufferably confident to everybody for about 6 months. And I noticed when MLD John, he was doing that when he was on Rule Zero. Once he made his $2 million on his course and stuff like that, started becoming insufferable. And I'm like, everybody's like, I can't believe he's acting like this. I'm like, I can. He's supposed to. You get a guy who started with like couldn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, can't rub two pennies together, and then you get him into work, and that work gets him what he wants to get. Of course he's going to be an ass, because this is brand new to him. He fucking earned it. And so you just don't take it personally. You're just like, look, he's going to be a prick for 6 months, and then he's going to calm down. He's going to It's going to be the new normal for him, and he'll be fine. So don't worry about it. And you guys might notice this too. If you ever had a friend who went from zero to hero and all this shit, and you're like, oh, I can't hang around him anymore. This is kind of one of those things for you. It's like, relax. Give him 6 months. You know, just maybe don't 100% invest. Maybe just walk back a little bit. It's like, all right, have your moment. I'll be here when you get back. If he's like, you guys are fucking idiots and I'm the greatest, you're like, I know. You got to figure it out. And then 6 months later, he's like, oh, he's just a normal person again. And you guys can get back to life. Thank God. Arthur the Red, £2 super chat. Cheers, man. Cheers to you too. Louis with $9.99 super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Oh, dude. Okay, I'm ending on this because this is the greatest super chat ever. TC2000 and King of the Kickboxers are Billy Blank's classics, couch. Dude. Okay, King of the Kickboxers is classic. If I'm not mistaken, and I have to go check the numbers again, I think that came out before Kickboxer. And so it actually inspired the Jean-Claude Van Damme one for Bloodsport, I think. I could be wrong, but you're absolutely right. The fact that they have like the training montage for like the 3 kick ending thing too was awesome. TC2000, also great, one of the Terminator knockoffs. But if you're talking about the Billy Blank classic, nothing, and I mean nothing, is as good as 2 Billy Blanks movies. Talons of the Eagle and Back in Action. And you're like, why those 2? Well, first off, Talons of the Eagle was the first movie with him and Yahal Merhi, and it was essentially the same plot as Bloodsport. Or no, same plot as Kickboxer. And when they started doing it as like the action trope mixed with buddy cop. Fucking awesome, because Yahal Merhi, first off, has the personality of a hunk of wood. So it's fucking hilarious. And Billy Blanks has horrible acting, but he's got personality. Why did I say Back in Action? Because isn't that one of his newer ones? Yes, but imagine this. Billy Blanks with Roddy Piper in a buddy cop film. Yeah. You guys are on Pirate Bay right now. Where the fuck is Back in Action? And I'm pretty sure there's 2 of them. There's Back in Action and then Back in Action 2. Let me make sure I got the name right, because if I turn to those Back 2 Action, I'm going to feel bad about this. Yeah, Back in Action, 1994. The first of 2. That's right, there is 2. Oh, dude, the cover alone is just fucking magic. Yeah, Billy Blanks, Roddy Piper, Back in Action. I know what I'm watching this Christmas. Fucking rights. You want to watch your first Billy Blanks movie? Well, that depends. If you want to start with the best, I would say Back in Action. If you want to start with the original and start like in that, I would say King of the Kickboxers. Me personally, my first starting one was Talons of the Eagle. But if you watch, what's the other one? It's not TC2000, but Billy Blanks and who's the guy from Bloodsport again? Bolo Young. Oh, that is TC2000. Okay, so TC2000. You know the main villain from Bloodsport, Tong Po or whatever? Not Tong Po. Whatever. His name is Bolo Young. He was also in Enter the Dragon. He's the sidekick for Billy Blanks in TC2000, and he teaches them this move, like punch a watermelon from through a door. Yeah, he is a beast. He's like a bodybuilding Chinese kung fu guy. Fucking awesome character. So TC2000, you couldn't go wrong with that. Balance of Power and Showdown. You mean Showdown in Little Tokyo? I thought that was Brandon Lee. Hold on a second here. Oh, you're talking about Showdown. Wait, that is the one with Brandon Lee. Isn't it? Well, I guess not. Dude, I'm going to have to go watch this one. My memory's fading on this one. That's crazy. I thought I was the hugest Billy Blanks fan. He's also in The Last Boy Scout, which is actually a really good action movie, deceptively undervalued. He was in the beginning of that as the football player who shot a bunch of people. Anyways, so that's it for this one. Oh, Dolph Lundgren, Brandon Lee. Yeah, Showdown in Little Tokyo, which is good because he did some good stuff together. Where is my thingy here? There it is. What's CTCK? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to lead you out, but we're going to have some fun with the Chick Talks. Or no, this is the Manosphere Mornings. Can you believe it? Like,
Look at us. Hey, who would have thought? Not me.
fucking oh my god, he's in the wild. Oh my god, it's Patrick Stedman.
My favorite things about women, and I respect as well as love.
You enjoy these now, man. It is August 30th. 2023, in the year of our Lord. Pat Stedman is here. I don't know for how much longer. His sentencing is coming up. 4 to 8 years. Oh,
I think he does 6
feel
years.
at peace. You know, a noble heart embiggens the cromulent man.
A noble spirit embiggens the smallest man.
It's a perfectly cromulent word.
Really? Really? Can't come out of a trial like this without understanding. Yes, you can. There's this painter back in Austria. They put him in jail and he wrote a book. What the hell is that? That was like a very cleaned up and pretty looking Myron. All right, guys,
keep
we're out here until we find. I'll catch you later. Have fun. Red Rule 0. Oh wait, fuck! I got to do the thing. All right, you're here while I link to Clary's, because Clary is doing the episode. And he was like, "It's Adam. It's a big thing. You have to show up because I think you and I are gonna have a disagreement." And I'm like, "Dude, I love it when we disagree on basic shit. Because like I'm always right and you're always wrong." Pearl's doing a video right now, live stream. I bet you she does more views than you. Oh, that's right. All right, so I can't link directly to it because Clary doesn't have his thing on the thing. That's fine. We'll just lead you there. Find Clary's Rule 0 thing. You'll be fine.
'79T 2458 Learning Corp. Little Red Riding Hood. Take 1.